Have you gone out to your garden, especially at night, looked out at your vegetables and seen a slug slithering on your lettuces? Well, today I think you're gonna love as I share the 2 best slug control methods, complete with some live video. Let's go! Hi, welcome back to Blossom Hill Microgreens, where we discuss microgreens and other gardening tips to help you have a more successful growing season. If you are interested in videos like that, please consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell so you'll be informed of new content as it releases. Today, we're going to discuss slugs and how you can prevent them from wreaking havoc on your garden. As you may know, slugs will pretty much eat anything, but what they really love are vining vegetables like tomatoes and cucumbers, and also a lot of leafy greens like lettuce. Here's an example of a Swiss chard leaf that my slugs went to town on. And so let's get started with the 2 best slug control methods that you can implement in your garden. Here is the copper wire that I'm utilizing for this project. I purchased it at the local grocery store for about $3, and I really like how easily it unravels, and you can see that you can just cut it, and it still creates its rounded shape, so it still easily applies around plants directly. And that's why I chose it as opposed to the copper tape. Now, I do think the copper tape would be a better option if you have potted plants. So you may be wondering what makes copper so special, or this common question I often receive. So one question that I get asked is, how does the copper in fact stop the slugs? Well, slugs are a type of mollusk, which there are about 80,000 of them in the world. About 20% of them are in the marine life and water, but the remaining 80% are primarily these slugs and snails, which of course, as we know, are primarily on the land. So slugs use a certain type of protein in their blood to transport oxygen around their bodies, and it is sensitive to copper. And so this makes mollusks very sensitive to ingestion of additional quantities of copper. Too much copper, and it prevents oxygen from moving around their bodies, and they eventually die unless they can flee away from it. I added larger second rings around plants as they grew, just to provide an extra layer of encouragement. When we were setting up these copper rings, we happened to come across a couple of actual slugs, and so I decided, well, let's test them out. So I put Turbo here right next to this copper wire near one of my beets, and just to see sort of how it would react. So it dived right on in, and let's see what happened. Oh, I see what he's doing.
What?
He's coming back.
Oh.
You see his head, his eyes? He's like, ooh, this could be interesting if it like slices him up.
Well, it doesn't look like they've been climbing on the leaves to eat it.
Tell me he's come out. Well, she's come out.
Well, if he turns around, that's going to be cool just to see him turn around. I'm amazed that he can slip his body through that, though.
Oh, they don't have any bones.
Yeah. You see his eyes, Caleb? Look. See his eyes? His eyes are on the front there. See, he was over here, and then he came out, and he's like, oh, no, I don't want that copper. I don't want that copper scourge pad.
Hopefully that's what he's thinking.
Well, he turned away.
Look how big he is now.
God, he is bigger. It's like he got triple sized.
Disgusting.
Well, I have to consider that a success. He turned away. So this first trial was really interesting to me because it was the first time that I had seen a slug turn away a chance at a leafy vegetable. I put the same slug in front of a second plant, and again the slug almost immediately makes a right angle turn away from it. And this is really interesting because my experience of watching slugs briefly is that they pretty much take the path of least resistance. So at this point, having seen 2 examples, I'm feeling pretty excited about this copper wire. But check out this third trial. It was even better. Alright, so this third plant that we put the slug in front of is a Swiss chard, and they've been loving on these things lately. You'll see, there's Turbo again. And I want to take you live so you can feel some of the excitement that I had when I saw this for the first time. Oh, that's interesting.
What?
So I put him over here, I put him over there, and there's a little piece of stray wire over here, and he literally went whoop. And that's incredible, and why I'm pausing the frame here for a few moments so you can see the way he twisted and turned to avoid the copper like he was in a go-kart race. Alright, Slug, you've done good work for us. I want to thank you for avoiding the copper tape and making the right decision. So I'm going to hook you up with I'm not going to kill you. I'll have some That's right. That's right. Stay away from the garden, all right? I'll put you over here on the flower.
All right. Let's see how many slugs you can catch over here.
Tell your friends to stay away from the tape. Okay? Come on. I'll give you a nice little greeny leaf. If you have friends or family that are having issues with slugs in their yards or gardens, go ahead and share this video and help them out. So the second method is the beer trap, and you simply fill a cup a third or half of the way full of beer, and the slugs are attracted to the smell. You'll see there's a little one right there. Especially if you go out at night, you'll see numerous slugs that will end up at the top or the side of the cup. Eventually they make their way down, and they won't be able to swim out of the beer once they fall into it. And while this method will certainly kill the slugs, let your heart not be as troubled knowing that insects and birds love beer-drenched slugs, and they will eat them in the cup and certainly once you put them on the ground. So I am wondering if you've used copper wire or the tape, or tried the beer method to try to get rid of your slugs. I'm interested how that's worked for you, and please let me know in the comments. A second question I get is, well, so is this going to be 100% effective? And I think that it's important to recognize that as organic gardeners, or people that care about not just quantity of what you're growing, but maintaining the quality and sustainable growing, that no, it's not going to be 100% effective. I don't think it's reasonable to think that you're going to have 100% success with anything. But look, if your garden were to go from having slug problems on virtually all of your lettuce to maybe having slug problems on maybe one of your plants, right, it would be a huge benefit. That's why I've been trying these 2 different methods in tandem. First this copper method, and now this beer trap. And so you can sort of see we got part 1, keeping them away from the planets we most care about, and 2, encouraging them to go somewhere else. There are other methods that are used to combat slugs beyond the 2 that I've demonstrated today. And so because they do come up a lot, I'd like to address them. One of them are little pellets, like food type of pellets that you would put out. The slugs would eat them and ingest them, and and then die. That is something that I don't recommend because there are other insects and animals that will also eat those pellets, and they can also have those same negative impacts. Also, a lot of those pellets have chemicals in them, and eventually they'll work their way into your soil. When we're thinking about being good stewards of the land and organic gardening or organic growing, one of the things that's important to keep in mind is that we want to try and do things that don't damage our soil or don't damage the environment, and are considerate of the other creatures that that are in our garden. And so that's why, you know, for example, I like this copper method, which basically, you know, as we've seen, just gets them to turn away. Or even in another video that I have that you can see up here, I was discussing strawberries, and as opposed to, you know, spreading pesticides all over the place, you know, if you simply elevate your strawberries so they're not on the ground, most of the insects won't bother them until they've spoiled. I don't know if it's an urban legend, but maybe we can call it a gardener's legend, and that is a sort of copper and electricity. I hear all over the place that the snail walks across the copper tape and it's an electrical charge. And, you know, as we've already discussed, no, it's a chemical reaction. Now, there are people that, you know, have attached sort of electrical elements to the copper. So in other words, like, for example, you know, tie a battery to it. Now, if you were to connect a battery to any electrical service, you know, including copper, yeah, it would, you know, have a electrical charge. Slugs and the snails probably don't like that, but for me, that's just something that is a matter of to what extent do I feel comfortable putting a battery around my plants or garden. You know, I'm sure that there is a way to do it safely, but I'm just not sure in, you know, sort of the longevity of that. And I think that the other two solutions that I've provided, you know, are far simpler. Final alternative method, you know, let's call it relocation. I do think, you know, this is obviously the most sensitive for your slugs if you want to actually pick them off or you know, and move them to somewhere else. As you know, I actually did that to you know, to Turbo for his or her helpful video demonstration, which I really appreciated. But I just would sort of just be mindful of the fact that they might make your way back to the garden unless you send them off somewhere, you know, reasonably far away. So, you know, don't think that if you just move them from your lettuce to your rose bush, you know, 10 or 20 feet away or something, that it's going to be content with the rose bush. You know, it might just find its way back to your lettuce in a few days. So they are, it's, you know, their reputation of being slow, but I mean, when you think about how they're moving around, it's kind of amazing how far they can go, especially, you know, in the wetter conditions that they prefer. Alright, so if you found this video enjoyable, please give us a thumbs up. If not, please sarcastically give us a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell if you'd like to be notified when our future videos are released. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.